Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. I am still under the weather, still under those aches and pains, but you know the program must go on. The program must go on. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the program. Welcome aboard. We are going to have a great show today. You know, we start out pretty much darn Bernie because the hyperventilation on the good old man has begun. Bernie Sanders seems to be surging. And what do you think starts to happen? People start to simply freak out. But before we get busy, want to remind everybody right now, you know, I don't talk a lot about the impeachment. And the reason why I don't talk a lot about the impeachment is I don't really think for the most Americans, it doesn't matter that much because what we want to make sure is that we are on to making that transformational change in this country that is required to take care of student loans for the students, to take care of and ensure we have Medicare for all, to make sure that we start to clean up the environment, to make sure we start to drag the CO2 out of the air. Those are the things that are existential. Those are the things that matter. Those are the things that many centrists, many Republicans, and many people at large cannot see. They just want to hold on and say, let's just take what we can get. For those of us who are going to live past these folks who are the old timers, for those of us who are going to live past all that's going on, there ain't no time to waste, my friends. This is the time. This is the time that, to put it bluntly, Donald Trump is so bad that he has given the progressive agenda a chance much better than it would otherwise have had. So, folks, don't give in. Don't allow the plutocracy. Don't allow the media out there to temper you. Don't allow them to let you settle. Don't allow them to make you change what you know is right. Progressiveness is what we're all about. But let's just talk a little bit about the impeachment right now. That president right there, he is impeached. That president has been impeached, and now the trial is occurring in the Senate. And you know what, folks? I tell you what, I am so impressed. And you know, we are not generally very impressed with what goes on in Congress because we know a lot of times what we're seeing is but a show. But I tell you what, those Democrats who are out there pressing the case, they are out there with a very well done job. And I don't say that lightly. The Democrats that are doing their jobs right now, they have done a great job. They are doing a great job. And I think it's incumbent on us all to give them the kudos they deserve. Because you know what? None of us expected that was the kind of job that these guys were going to get done. And you know what? They're doing it. So let's give them kudos on that. Secondly, I've listened to this case on and on before. I followed both the Mueller case. I followed the Ukraine case. And I think I'm pretty much apt at what's going on. But the presentation that these guys are making right now, the presentation in Congress that they're making right now is so spot on, is so irrefutable that in as much as I understand that likely no Republican is going to vote to remove this president. We talk about the president currently having a scarlet letter on him because he has the moniker impeached president on him. Well, you know what? There's another moniker that's going to be out there. That other moniker that's going to be out there is that moniker that states we don't only have an impeached president, but we now have a Senate. A Senate that's filled with Republicans that were unable to implement, that were unable to complete their constitutional duty. And you know what? That matters. That matters more than anything else. That matters. And so what we have to ensure going forward, folks, is that the message goes out there, that the message is present, that the message is always heard. Because what Fox News and their cabal is good at doing to their listeners. And by the way, we should hold no animosity whatsoever towards the Trump voter. We should have no animosity at all towards those folks on the right wing. And I'm saying that from the depths of my heart because I've gotten to that place where I understand that if we allow that to happen, we have allowed the plutocracy to win. Let me tell you what I consider my job. Let me tell you what I consider our jobs as progressives. Let me tell you what I think we should be doing out there. We should be opening the doors and laying the field out, keeping that door open for these people to come in. Hate solves no problem. It is okay that they hate. That's okay. We don't have to reciprocate. We never should reciprocate in that regards, because if we are looking for the truth, if we're looking for as far as moving forward, what we want to do is show these other people that no, we're not like them. And we have to understand something that is even more important. These people did not get that way because of something intrinsic within their minds. This was all orchestrated by the Powell Manifesto. There was a document, there were institutions created to have these people completely fooled, and we have to understand how that came about. So if we have people that were summarily misinformed and we used a lot of their carnal triggers to move them, we also, as progressives, as people who think, as people who analyze things, have to come to the conclusion that we must have the empathy lacking by many. And we can do that. We can do that. It's hard. It is not an easy thing to do, but we can do it. Yesterday I had a friend call. A guy has never voted before in his life. And he said, Egberto, how do I speak to this guy to start to tell him how important our vote is? And it was a difficult conversation because it is easy to throw your hands up in the air and say, there's just no choice. But there is. But I tell you what, let's go ahead and get moving with the program. Let's get moving with the program. The title of the show today is Bernie Sanders Surge. Bernie Sanders surge. The hyperventilation. I probably should have put the S at the end of surge, but I wanted a different inflection. But so Bernie Sanders surge. The hyperventilation of the establishment immediately begins. Bernie Sanders is starting to surge. First, the New York Times decided to endorse two candidates, neither being him. And as much as he is the one with the momentum, he's the one pulling forward. And now the mainstream media is attempting to belittle his recent surge. They started to notice him. Remember what a lot of people say. First they ignore you, then they start to notice you, then they start moving on. Hi, welcome Kathleen Morgan from Chile Sactuade. Welcome Michael Dean Newton. And for those on YouTube, I can't see your names. Go ahead and just put a little message in there saying hello, and I'll call you out as well. If you want to be a contributor to the show as well, you can hit the $ as well and say, hey guy, we want to throw a couple bucks to ensure that progressive media, independent media can continue. But anyhow, folks, check this out. Iowa is almost here. While Biden leads Bernie Sanders in recent polls in Iowa, activity on the ground may be more probative. It is so probative that Chris Matthews, a Bernie Sanders apologist, a Bernie Sanders promoter, is out there stating, I think Bernie is going to win the first two. So says Chris Matthews a few days ago. And you know, it's sort of people starting to feel that, right? They're starting to feel, welcome aboard, Dion L. Davis. They're starting to feel that. They're starting to say, yeah, just maybe it's going to happen. And it can. So anyhow, on the ground may be more probative. It is clear that Bernie Sanders is on the ascent and the establishment of all parties are likely worried. Here is a dirty little secret. They're not scared because they think Bernie will lose the election for the Democrats. That's not what the fear. You know, everybody wants you to believe that the reason they are scared about Bernie representing the Democratic Party is that somehow Bernie gets there, Americans are going to be stamped with the guy who has a socialist all over his name, and they're going to say, oh no, we can't have Bernie. That is not what it's all about. That is not what it's all about. The fear is that Bernie runs and Bernie wins. The fear is that Bernie runs and Bernie wins, which is the likely occurrence, because that is not only transformational as Elizabeth Warren would be, that is monumental, because it means all the triggers designed to scare you from voting for people that are progressives by throwing that moniker onto them would have lost its muster. And if it has lost it, what else have they got? Bernie Sanders, if you are somehow going to get this guy elected, oh my God, it changes the calculus. So anyhow, what am I going to talk about today? Or before that, they're scared because a likely win will mean a monumental shift of the country's psyche that foretells the decline of the corporatocracy. Rose Williams, welcome aboard, my friend, as well. That's the issue, my brothers and sisters. That is the issue. He may win. That's what they're so scared about, because you know what? He could possibly win. So the topics today: wealthy centrists will vote for Donald Trump. Don't forget that. Wealthy centrists will vote for Donald Trump. But there are so many more voters who've never voted who will become voters in 2020 that far surpasses the wealthy centrists that will vote for Donald Trump. Sorry about that. Like I said, I'm still getting over the cold, still have chills, still have a little bit of those body pains. Went in early this morning to KPFT to do some fundraising for KPFT. Out there with Amy Goodman. I forgot to tell you guys. This morning I was on the ISDN line with Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! We were pitching at Democracy Now! For KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston and other Pacifica radio stations. So I'm sick. Had to drive out there early in the morning. So forgive me for whatever screw-ups I have today. I will blame my screw-ups, whether it's the fault of the cold or the flu or not, on it. Hey, what can I say? I can do that, right? I don't think you'll hold it too much against me. Anyhow, wealthy centrists will vote for Donald Trump. Topic number one: the media has started its hyperventilation with novel theories. Topic number two: Bernie takes a double-digit lead in New Hampshire poll. Topic number three: talk is the former President Obama. Talk is that the former president, I got to fix that typo, man. Talk is that the former President Obama may intervene if Bernie's surge seem inevitable. And last topic: Trump restrict visas for pregnant women. I'm going to try to get to that. That is sort of off topic, but a friend of mine called me a few minutes ago and he said, Bert, have you seen that news about the pregnant women? I haven't read the article completely, but I wanted to bring that up to at least put a link in there in the blog post, because it seems like it is something that we need to cover. So let's go ahead and start with this. Remember what I just said. The fear is that somehow Donald Trump wins. And these guys much prefer Bernie Sanders win. These guys much prefer a Donald Trump than a Bernie Sanders. I want you to check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. Check this out. Will centrists support a progressive who wins, or will they go and either stay home or vote for Donald Trump? My theory is that no, they're not staying home. My theory is that they are going to come, and many of them will vote for Donald Trump. And why do I say that?
Going to lose in a landslide. Joe, I'm going to take it one step further, because this is how dangerous socialism. I find Donald Trump reprehensible as a human being, but a socialist candidate is more dangerous to this country as far as the strength and well-being being of our country than Donald Trump. I would vote for Donald Trump, a despicable human being.
So I've written several articles before that show the similarity between what I call the upcoming elite. It doesn't matter if they are centrist Democrat or they are centrist Republican. They all share the same interests monetarily. And the question is whether they are as altruistic as they claim to be in the support of policies that help middle class America or that help the poor American. And that is one of the reasons why I'm telling a whole lot of progressive people in the pattern that we ought to have right now is not talking about anything other than telling stories and speaking directly to the Republican. They all share the same interests monetarily. And the question is whether they are as altruistic as they claim to be. Base of progressive people that vote their interests. And if their interest happens to be the Democratic Party, do so. If the Democratic Party starts to go haywire on the right or whatever, we do what has to be done. I don't think that is too hard to agree with. I mean, it is high time now, folks, right? It is no longer time for us to acquiesce to mediocrity. It is no longer time for us to acquiesce to some sort of a politics that leaves too many of us behind. Like I started the program earlier today, the truth of the matter is we have real issues to talk about, whether Donald Trump is impeached or not. If Donald Trump is impeached, who becomes president? Spence become president, same modus operandi. If Donald Trump is impeached or not, and if for some reason Biden makes it through the if Biden makes it through the Democratic primary to become or representative, now I will vote for Biden. I'll be frank. I am voting blue because I do believe we have relatives, we have friends, and that would be a better vote than to have Donald Trump again. I will not be like Donnie Deutsch, and I won't go and put a vote out there that will possibly allow Donald Trump by splitting the votes to get reelected again. We did that once. I think it's sort of a blessing in that we get Donald Trump so people could see how bad things could get. I don't know if things have gotten as bad as they necessarily needed to get, given what Trump is doing with the repo market that is giving the economy a sugar high as opposed to a high based on true productivity, a high based on true an economy that's really building things. That's not what's occurring right now. We're still on a sugar high. But a Biden presidency will be a lot calmer. A Biden presidency will have the international markets feeling much better. A Biden presidency will make Europe and all these other countries just feel satisfied. But a Biden presidency does very little for the American people. The only thing that we can see with the Biden presidency is that, the broken Obamacare system right now will get some suspenders. And notice I didn't say got fixed. It gets suspenders. And what is the suspenders called? That suspender will be the public option that will be nothing more than a gift for the private insurance companies, because what they haven't told you is just like Medicare was a gifted insurance back in the 60s and 70s, the public option is a gift to insurance companies, because what it does is they find a way to offload all the sick people, all the poor people, all the people that really can't pay or that have pre-existing conditions into the public option, no matter what they say. That's the idea. So the public option will be the very high-priced option for people, while everybody else will kind of get a semblance of a reprieve. Notice I said a semblance of a reprieve. You still won't have choice with private insurance. You still won't have options with private insurance. The private insurance companies will still tell you what medicines you can take. The private insurance companies will still tell you what hospitals you can go to. The private insurance companies will still tell you what doctors you can see, unlike Medicare for All, which says we are going to allow you to choose your doctor, choose your hospital, and use whatever doctor is available to you and whatever medicine that doctor believes is best for you within the framework of what we've decided within the medical jurisprudence, and I don't know if those words are used correctly, is what will occur, unlike our current system, which is nothing more than a private dictatorship with a facade of choice. So anyhow, as you heard, our centrists have no intentions. Our centrists have zero intentions of supporting anything having to do with either a Warren or a Bernie Sanders. So now, check this out. I want you to listen to Chris Matthews and what he tries to do as he finds out that, oh my God, Bernie Sanders looks like he's going to start winning the thing. So he has a novel idea as far as who would be the beneficiary if somehow El Señor Sanders comes out ahead. And, I sat down racking my brains. How did he come up with this? But check out what he had to say. The mainstream media is at it again. Bernie Sanders took a surge in New Hampshire. He's now leading. He's starting to surge all over the country. And what do you think is happening? The narrative that the mainstream media is trying to use now has changed. I want you to listen to this, and we'll then take it on the other side.
So the question is, how smart is Donald Trump? I know you know. I'm sure you made a judgment about that over these months and years. Is he smart enough to know that if Bernie Sanders wins the first set of contests, starting in Iowa and running perhaps right through Nevada and challenging Biden, maybe beating Biden, or certainly doing well in South Carolina and going into Super Tuesday as the front runner, that basically brings in Mike Bloomberg
so
as the cavalry? And is this president running already against Mike Bloomberg? Because I'm looking at these tweets. He's going after Mini Mike. Has he already jumped ahead of the Democrats' fight and understands his ultimate fight might be with Mike Bloomberg?
So you asked me a question. I'm going to ask you a question back, and then I'm going to address the Bloomberg piece. Why do you think the president, and by the way, others in his orbit, have been going after Senator Sanders so hard over this last week, 10 days or so? They are making Sanders the target, not anybody else, and I think that that's been notable. Chris, as to the Bloomberg point, you have to remember the other dynamic piece of it there, right? Donald Trump knows Bloomberg from his New York days. He's a New Yorker, Bloomberg's a New Yorker, and that's part of the dynamic. You see it a little bit with Senator Chuck Schumer as well, right? The president has this sort of interesting relationship or relates to these people on a different level because he sees them as these New Yorkers and feels like, he knows the city. And there's also that dynamic that's coming into play in this year, I think, as well.
I think you're right. It also had to do with his business, dealing with government people and dealing with competitors. And that's where it seems to be the inside boxing. That's the good stuff. So I love what you said because that's what I think. I think he's looking ahead to the fight.
What is ironic is I don't think Chris Matthews understood what Hallie Jackson just did to him there. Hallie Jackson just said, you are saying that somehow he's disregarding Bernie Sanders. Why the hell did he really go on the attack on Bernie Sanders? And secondly, he knows who Mike Bloomberg is. In effect, Mike Bloomberg is not really going anywhere. Mike Bloomberg is playing a business deal here. Here's the deal. That form of disregarding what is in front of you to try to change the narrative, maybe it would work in other years. I don't think it's going to work this year. I think Bernie Sanders is on an ascent that is likely to continue. If he wins Iowa and New Hampshire, I think we are really in for a new kind of race. Stay tuned. Okay, I stand by that. We are in for a new race. Some people may say, so what about Elizabeth Warren? Look, Elizabeth Warren is still in the game. I think Elizabeth Warren's issue with Medicare for All is sort of a bump in the road that need not have been taken. And here's what I mean, folks. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders still... I went ahead and read over some of Elizabeth Warren's material. It's not substantially different than Bernie. Elizabeth Warren decided to come out and say, yes, there's going to be a process, a slower process, 3 years before we start. Bernie says we start right away, but it's in 4 years. We got it done. I think the one from Jayapal says 2 years, if I remember correctly. So there is a whole lot of differences among these things here. But I think what we speak of here is that, yes, Bernie Sanders is on the ascent. And I think the next person, in other words, if somehow America is made to fear that socialist name again, because the policies that we are actually looking for are that of what Bernie Sanders is speaking of and Elizabeth Warren has spoken of, what I'm pretty sure of is that It's not what the New York Times said. The New York Times says, oh, let's pick between Elizabeth Warren or Amy Klobuchar. Here's the deal. I don't even know how the hell they got to Amy Klobuchar. As if Amy Klobuchar was making some sort of a surge. If Amy Klobuchar made a 100% surge, she's still in single digits. We have to get real. What we have is a mainstream media that is attempting, to drive you into stuff that you don't necessarily want, but that you fear because of the narrative they are given. That's why we need independent media, folks, that can actually tell you the way things are. To tell you the way things are. So here's the deal. There is no potential form. There's no potential way that we can see right now that the election of 2020 in the Democratic Party will lead to anything other than one of our progressives winning. And the only mitigating factor there is when we go into, if we happen to have a brokered convention in Milwaukee. If we have a broken convention, then all hell breaks loose. If what's attempted is to move the party to where the party isn't going to be. A real party, a real people who believe in the conviction in what they believe in is going to go out there and fight for what they know is right. But anyhow, before we go any further, I want to remind my good old folks right now that we are a program that do need your support. So what I'm asking you folks to go ahead, you can actually go to our store and check out our I Support Independent Media t-shirt at store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com. Please support us by purchasing some of our merchandise. Likewise, we have that one that says, unprecedented president deserves an unprecedented exit. That is at store.politicsdoneright.com. And you see that picture with El Señor Trump with the balls, with the ball chain around his ankle, as well as the handcuffs that he's in. Let's show America. Let's go out there and show independent media is doing its job. We're out there informing you. We're out there not pulling a plug. Yes, right now MSNBC and CNN, all of them are playing the impeachment debate. Most of us that are listening to this know what's going on in impeachment, but we need to have more food for thought. We need to be out there doing more things to get our people. So folks, please go ahead and go there. And please don't forget that without you, there is no we. We do need you. You can always go to politicsdoneright.com. You can go to politicsdoneright.com. Politicsdoneright.com is where you can find all the other ways to support us. Now, by the way, folks, this is a call-in show. Let me put the telephone number on screen. It's a call-in show. You can reach us right now at 64. We're live right now. We're live. If you're seeing live on your Facebook thing, if you're seeing live on YouTube, if you're seeing live on Periscope, we're live. On Twitch, we're live. So you can give us a call right now on that number on your screen, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I'm waiting for your calls before we go to the blog of the week if you decide to call. But in the interim, let me go ahead and tell you, if you want to subscribe to Politics Done Right, you can just go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. I just added that to the base. It is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, that is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. If you want to support our equipment upgrade, all that we use when we leave town, when we go on the field, etc., go ahead and go to GoFundMe.com/independent-media-upgrade. That is GoFundMe.com/independent-media-upgrade. And of course, you can always contribute to the show directly by going on to PayPal.me. I think it's PayPal. There we go. PayPal.me/politicsdoneright. Again, that is PayPal.me/politicsdoneright. And don't forget to visit our store. We have some Good stuff, good t-shirts at the stores. And by the way, these are the t-shirts that we're also going to be having at our KPFT fund drive that is going on at KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, Texas. But right now, this is for Politics Done Right Daily. So, folks, give us a call, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. All right, some other stuff to discuss here. We took care of the first two topics. Here's the other deal. I want to show you something. Because when I saw this, I think it was John Nichols. Everybody knows, any progressive knows John Nichols. And this is what John Nichols had to say. Let me put that up on the screen. He puts up there and he says, this morning, New Hampshire Democratic primary poll from WBUR is going to get a lot of attention. It shows Bernie Sanders moving into a big lead. Sanders at 29%, Buttigieg at 17%, Biden at 14%, Warren at 13, Klobuchar 6, Yang 5, Kelsey Gabbard 5, Steyer 2. Notice that El Senor Bloomberg is nowhere to be found, but I don't think he's registered in New Hampshire anyway. Anyway, that is Sanders is plus 14 since December. He's plus 14 since December. So as it turns out, think about that. He went from 15 points to 29 points in 1 month. So there's a little of a surge going on there, and those are the numbers that are driving the plutocracy crazy. Those are the numbers that are having people think, what is happening here? Folks, if you want to talk about this before I go to the blog of the week, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. The other thing I want to talk to you about is kind of simple, right? This one really concerned me. And let me tell you why. It was put out by Charles Gasparino of, I guess, Fox News fame, right? He has this stuff. He put it out. Scoop! I've got a scoop! I've got a scoop! He tweeted, Democratic Party sources who have spoken with Barack Obama say former president is growing increasingly anxious about Bernie Sanders' rise in the national polls and where the avowed socialist would take the country. He is considering a public statement addressing it more now at Fox Business. Now, I didn't see the show. I think that came on earlier today because he tweeted that at about 11:37 a.m. So that must have occurred a couple of hours ago on Fox News. I didn't see it because I didn't see the tweet, but I wrote a little note back there and I said, President Obama will do well to stay out of the Democratic primary. And one of the reasons that I said in that tweet that I sent there, I said, President Obama did very well in giving people hope. Thank you so kindly for that suggestion. Folks, those of you that are on YouTube, please turn on your bell so that when our show goes live, you get notified. But whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or any other ones, a person just, let's see, Arkinity13. Arkinity13, thank you so kindly. He said, you should tell your subscribers to turn on the bell so they can get notified when you're streaming. Thank you for that advice, my friend. Anyhow, folks, as I was talking about President Obama concerns me at this point in time. I worked very hard as one of the millions who worked very hard to ensure that President Obama got elected. President Obama did not get elected on some moderate platform. President Obama was called the same kind of socialist that Bernie Sanders is being called right now. President Obama was maligned for the same reasons that Bernie Sanders is maligned. But he had even a bigger anchor to pull, because he was a black man with a Muslim name. And you know what? We worked hard. The country together, we worked hard to get this man elected because he was promising policies, progressive policies to move the country forward. Now, were they affected? No, they were not affected. Many of us gave him a break. After all, the first year we had the economic crisis, so therefore a lot that should have gotten done didn't get done. The truth of the matter is a more apt president would have used that economic crisis to get a hell of a lot done, because if you don't do it my way, we keep spiraling down. So therefore, we didn't have to try to inflate the economy with a large percentage of tax cuts. We could have inflated it with infrastructure. We could have inflated it with a whole lot more than we actually inflated it with. But what we did was gave the right a big piece of pie, even as we had a veto-proof Senate, even as we had a huge lead in Congress. All right? But we forgave President Obama for those issues because we know the stress factor of a country in meltdown. When it came to the Obamacare, Obama once said he believed in single payer, but we acquiesced to an Obama that said, well, we can only hope for the public option. And many of us on the left said, no, public option not good enough. We want Obamacare to be a single payer system. When that didn't work, we went ahead and said, well, you know what? We have to give this guy a break. We have to give this guy a break. We went ahead and decided to allow the public option. And then the public option was killed, not by Republicans. The public option was killed by Democrats. Centrist Democrats killed the public option. So we lived with a flawed, I'm coming to you now, 781. So we lived with a flawed system. And after that, now that we're coming around, we've seen that the flawed system is not flawless. So we now know Medicare for all is the only option, a single payer Medicare for all, the only option. And now that we know that, the same people who didn't want the public option because it may have been in competition with the private sector, decide, I guess we better go with the public option now because Medicare for all is gaining traction. Medicare for all is gaining traction. I'll talk a little bit more about Obama after I take this call. Come on in. Let's see. Coming in from 781. You're hot. Come on in.
Hi, Egberto. It's Kathleen.
Kathleen, how are you doing, my friend?
I have a few thoughts, and I'm curious as to what your thoughts are.
Sure, let me hear it.
Okay. Well, some of the media talking heads and the political analysts and some of the establishment Democrats that are no longer in office, they seem to be playing checkers instead of chess.
You're right.
And by that I mean, okay, let's say you push a centrist and you get a centrist like Joe in office. Now, do they understand why we ended up with Trump, at least in part?
Well,
that, the 40 or close to 40 years of neoliberalism,
right,
and war hawks and the declining middle class, things have not improved. And that is in a large part, at least from the people I know who voted for Trump, they believed his populist message that he would help the middle class, that he would help the average worker. And that's why they voted for him. It had nothing to do with him being racist or xenophobic or whatever. That turned them off. But they're.
I love that you said that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I love that you said that, and what you said is important because that's why I don't know if you started watching the program. And Michael Garcia, welcome aboard. The Politics Done Right. The reason I'm glad you said that. And here's the other deal, Kathleen. Earlier, I started the program and I said we should not be hating on the Trumpists. We should not be talking about, oh, we don't like them, even if they're hating on us. And the reason why is that you just hit the magic money right there. A lot of these people genuinely, yes, they're the racists, yes, they're all of these things, right? But even the racists voted for Obama, okay? Because they felt Obama had a message that spoke to them. And you know how I knew that? When the guy went to Pittsburgh, when Obama's people were canvassing in Pittsburgh, and this guy went ahead and asked the woman, I don't know why she thought she had to ask her husband. She said, honey, who are we voting for? And he ran back. And guys, I need to give the effect here, so forgive my language. When they asked the guy, the wife, who they're voting for, the wife asked the husband. The husband shouted back, honey, please tell them we're voting for the nigger. A lot of people went, they went crazy. People were, how can you say that? They said that, he said the word, he said the N-word. And for me, it was a rejoicing moment because I said, we are making progress when somebody's prejudice supersedes, or rather, somebody's economic wanting for their economic well-being supersedes their own prejudice. I looked at it as a positive movement. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Yes. Well, my fear in as far as excuse me, if Biden is the nominee and somehow wins, which I have gross doubts about, but the Trump 2.0, the next Trump, when nothing changes for the working class, the middle class, and they further decline, and there are more people close to poverty, and there are more people in poverty, the next demagogue is going to be worse than Trump. And I don't understand how they can't look at the big picture. I mean, I'm a college dropout, and I can analyze it, and I can see exactly what happened and why we ended up with somebody like Trump, because people were desperate, and they were sick and tired of the system not working for them and working for the elite, even though they maybe don't think of it in those terms.
Now,
and
Kathleen,
some of these Democrats,
look,
I'm like...
First, Kathleen, they understand it very well, Kathleen, okay? Don't dare believe that these analysts don't know the truth. The truth of the matter is, the problem is the elitist in this country who controls both parties themselves are one and in the same. And there is I always talk about the left rail and the right rail. They don't want to deviate from that left rail and right rail, which both fall within the neoliberal spectrum that you were talking about earlier. And they don't want to change the modus operandi, because what it really means is they no longer have the keys to take it all, which they have right now. So Americans cannot sit back and believe that Democrats, meaning our Democratic establishment, is stupid. What they really are is they like things the way it is. I don't know if you saw the beginning of the program when I had Donnie Deutsch on. I showed where Donnie Deutsch said, if Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren are the nominees, he is voting for Donald Trump. That is the mentality.
I did see that.
And the thing is that and the reason why he's saying that, except for style and a few things on the edges with the environment and a few things on the edges with how we treat people, Biden and Donald Trump are not foreign in this, are not all that different from an economic standpoint. From an economic standpoint, they're not very different. And from an economic standpoint, Donald Trump's rhetoric is more progressive than Biden's rhetoric. I'm not talking about in actuality. I'm saying his rhetoric is more progressive. When he comes out and says, I am going to increase I'm not going to take your Social Security away. I played that yesterday. His rhetoric sounded like a very progressive Democrat. But we know what is implemented behind the scene. The Supreme Court just gave him a break. They're not going to check. They are not going to test Obamacare validity. Now, here's what I'm. Let me tell you. I want you to hear this one real good, Catherine, because this is what people don't understand. This is the play that they're doing right now. They have a bill. Rather, they're trying to get it once more. They're trying to make Obamacare illegal. Okay, so that's what they want to do. But they don't want you voting on Obamacare being legal right now. It's a play on to both parties, and people don't understand what's going on here. Check this out. The public option is designed to go ahead and ensure people that don't, supposedly a competition for the private sector, right? Because right now, however, the law, Obamacare says everybody must be insured by every insurance companies. Okay, if the law isn't made illegal, what the insurance companies intend on doing is just making it difficult for people to sign up for their private health insurance, so they eventually will migrate to the public option. The public option will become more expensive because it's loaded with a whole lot of sick people. But here's the kicker. If the Supreme Court finally invalidates Obamacare, guess what happens? The requirement that the private sector insure people with pre-existing conditions is gone. All the sick people goes to the public sector, meaning the public option, and we have a new layer of bills that the American taxpayer is supposed to pay. Eventually it gets high, they get lousy service. It's all a scam, it's all a sham, and it's being played by both parties. If the Democratic Party came out and said, we are all going 100% behind Medicare for all, watch how things change. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Yeah, well, I agree with you as far as your analysis goes. But I mean, climate change is not like a small fringe issue. If we have Biden for, say, 4 years and we get a Trump 2.0 for an additional 4 or 8 years, I mean,
it's over.
My niece and nephew are going to be screwed.
Yes, you're right.
I mean, so what I don't understand is really these people who worship money and who think money is the be all end all. I mean, are they going to cause human extinction?
The truth is,
like what is the long game here? I don't understand it.
Look, they don't care. They don't care.
I don't know if that's what the word for that is. I don't think there is a word for that yet.
Let me tell you, the truth is they don't care. They honestly don't care. They are thinking about it not only through their own eyes, through their own current reality. That's all they care about. That's all. But you know what? Let me tell you something, Kathleen. I am not negative. I believe in pushing the candidate we want. And I know that if we do our job, that's what we're doing here. That's why I'm doing this. That's why you're doing what you're doing. Here's what they want. They want desperation to set in and us to put our tails between our legs and just feel incompetent. We cannot accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. I am nowhere there. I am saying one thing. I am going out there and I'm going to fight like hell for success. So, and you should too. And we are going to win.
I certainly hope so.
Let me tell you something. Positive affirmations, my dear Kathleen. Positive affirmations. We're going to do it. All right?
All right. Thanks, Egberto.
Thank you so kindly. You have a wonderful day, my friend. Okay, let's go to 602. 602, come on in, sir or ma'am.
Hi, Egberto.
Hello. Who do I have the honor of speaking with?
Hi, this is Carrie in Washington.
Carrie, talk to me, my friend.
Hi. So I just been thinking about Medicare for All a lot lately, and I'm in favor of Medicare for All single payer system.
Excellent.
So I think it is the only clear solution. I have a worry that I don't know how logical my worry is. And so that's why I wanted to share it with you. So I feel like the insurance industry is so powerful and wealthy, especially, the CEOs of these insurance companies. They're very smart and they're very wealthy and powerful right now. And my fear is that, if we if we do, let's say we pass single payer Medicare for all, I just have a fear that like they're going to find some way to either sabotage it or make, you know, something happen to where they are going to benefit from it still. Like they're going to take money from like profit off of it somehow and then just kind of lie to the American public. And
First
I
of all,
don't know
you're
if I'm
correct. That's
super
not,
crazy to think that, but
Carrie, let me first of all tell you, your fear is justified, okay? And not only is your fear
mhm.
justified, that is what they will do, that is what they will attempt to do. But here is the kicker, Carrie. Like I was talking to Kathleen earlier, they want us to feel incompetent. They want us to have that feeling that no matter what we do, they're so rich that they win. And one of the reasons that work is we have never been like the right that really hammered things in. It doesn't matter how poor folks on the right is, they're pushing a message that gets traction because they go for the jugular. What I've been telling folks right now is we have to start telling the truth, right? People still look at that insurance agent with a suit and a tie on as a respectable person. We have to make that person be exactly what they are, a thug in a suit with a tie. And once we start making those numbers, once we start attaching the word uh, uh, um, what is it called? Murder. It's I don't want to call it murder, but I call it manslaughter. Once we start calling it voluntary manslaughter, in other words, insurance companies effect voluntary manslaughter. If you're working, and we have to start creating our narrative, and we have to stick with it. And it's not going to be the mainstream media that does it. It's we. The independent media, we, those of you who are out there sharing our stuff and sharing the narrative, we have to play an integral part in this job. What happens is this. As an example, and I'm going to have to go to the other call after this, Kerry, but check this out, Kerry. This is this for you. When Obama won, Obama had great ideas. But one of the things we did is we let Obama slide in a lot of the issues, right? What we should have done, and I think Obama would have loved it, what we should have done is we should have kept on his back to ensure that we got the things that we know, first of all, he promised, and secondly, that we know most Americans want. We didn't do that, and that's where we are today. We got Trump. But anyhow,
Right.
thank you so kindly for calling, Kerry. And let me tell you, don't ever give up because we are going to pull this thing through, okay?
Okay, I'm with you.
Thank you so kindly. You have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.
All right, let's go now to line 607. Come on in, 607. You're on.
Hi, Alberto. It's Rose. How are you?
Talk to me, Rose. How are you doing? Hold 1 second, Rose.
Good.
Michael Garcia, thank you for being here, my friend. I wanted to talk about some of the subjects that you have on the link line, but if you have to go, I understand. Go ahead, Rose.
Okay, I had just a few points that I want to go over quickly,
Sure.
piggybacking over the last two callers, what they had to say. So as far as the environment goes, I think that a lot of people, even though they are extraordinarily rich, they may be quite ignorant about science and don't understand that our world is a living system.
Right.
And that in a system, everything works together. You can't just go to a machine and pull out random gears and cogs and it's going to work, all right? Or if you have a Jenga tower and you pull things out, it's going to collapse. And we're looking at major collapse, especially we're looking at danger to the nitrogen cycle, especially in the ocean where plankton is starting to be affected.
Right.
And that's all I want to say about that. As far as Medicare for all, I just want to emphasize a point that you were making, which is the people who are saying, oh, well, we should keep Obamacare and add a public option. That's going to make the whole thing just balloon with cost.
Right.
And then everyone, of course, is going to say, well, see, this is why we can't have Medicare for all, because it's going to keep all of the bureaucracy, all of the profit, everything else, and it's just going to make things worse because who's going to take the public option?
Magical.
Poor people and people with illness. And it's like you said, it's math. You know, you don't have to be a genius. It's math. The other thing about Medicare for all is that when you have an insurance system, all right, when you have an insurance system, people pay into it. If you pay in a lot of money and the insurance company doesn't have to give you money back because you're healthy, they keep that as profit. Okay? So they get richer and richer. If you have Medicare for all and certain people use more of the cost and other people don't, it flows, you know, freely. And, you know, the big money pile that we have due to our taxes can be focused where it belongs, as opposed to insurance where there is no focus. It's just everyone pays the max amount with addition, all the bureaucracy, all the profit, the cost of all the overpaid executives. And, you know, it's, as you said, if you know math, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
Rose, thank you so kindly.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say real quickly before I have to go, Rose?
Yeah, I do have one other thing, and I wondered, I requested some weeks ago if you and perhaps your daughter would watch the first episode of Diagnosis on Netflix. I don't know if you've done that.
I have not done that yet. To put it bluntly, I forgot. So I am going to check that.
Okay, but I am willing, and I know it's not much because, you know, I'm not rich, but I am willing to donate an additional $100 to Politics Done Right if you and your daughter will watch that and then comment on it.
Consider it.
And it's a real eye-opener.
I appreciate that. Consider it done. So donate, my friend. Donate. Consider it done. Because I'm going to go. I'm going to go listen to it right away.
Yeah. Okay.
You have a wonderful day. Okay.
It. Yes, you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rose. You have a wonderful day. Folks, let me tell you, it is so important that we get it right. Don't forget to get our I support independent media at store.politicsdoneright.com. I support independent media at store.politicsdoneright.com. And if you want to see Brother Trump in some chains, store.politicsdoneright.com. An unprecedented president deserves an unprecedented exit. And I'm going to tell you who is the designer of that in a little bit. But folks, it's important that we support these programs because we are good. I mean, you heard our callers today. Our callers are into this. Our callers understand what's going on. You understand what's going on. You know what is necessary in this country. And we can all do it together, but we have to be together. We have to work together on this. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And thank you for all the messages from YouTube, all the messages from Facebook. Remember, folks, the only messages from Facebook that I see in my multicast here are the ones that are under the Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies page. So please go ahead and subscribe to that page. Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies page. Subscribe to that page. That way, when we start, you can get a notice. It'll bring you directly to the page. You can comment on that page where I will see all of your comments. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out!